Welcome to NERDVANA LI.
All right, so we're streaming on Instagram Live, by the way. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's C-Train Media. You're gonna find the stream live there also. So man.
Or you can find memes on Martron Music.
Absolutely. So make sure what's going on.
So today's episode, we are going to be talking about a really interesting part
Marlon
of
and I
video
are
game
actually
history.
gonna fight. We're gonna fight.
We're gonna duke it out. So it is going to be Nintendo versus Sega, which is basically a 2-decade-long battle between Nintendo and Sega when they were both console companies. So we're going to start with Nintendo, since they were the earliest.
The OGs.
So on September 23rd of 1989...
Wait, before we do this, before we launch into this, I do want to say thank you so much to Video Game Trading Post for helping us provide a lot of the stuff that we're going to be using today.
Oh, yeah.
Also, a big thank you to Hudson Valley CBD. You guys are constantly on our social media, and we love it. So, thank you so much for sponsoring the show. We appreciate it, and a big thanks to Mission Nutrition as well.
We love you guys.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, back to the boring stuff. So,
boring!
On September 23rd of 1889, Nintendo was formed as a card company. Later on, 1963 shows up, and they want to expand the company. So one of the head people at Nintendo decides to go to, I think it was the United States, to the biggest card company in the world. Size was like the size of the office was like the size of this room. So he was like, "Screw this, we got to do something else."
I mean, how much office space do you need for a card company? Well, Konami and Yu-Gi-Oh! That's different.
Exactly. So
but this
they
was like what, the 1800s?
No, this was 1963 that this was going on.
What
We jumped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 1889 is when they started.
Yeah.
They did that until 1963 when this guy was like, "We need to do something else."
They did the cards for like almost 100 years?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So they decided that they needed to do other things to expand because the money wasn't there and the business wasn't there, clearly based on how the best company in the world was doing in this field. So they tried a few things. They tried, strictly in Japan, by the way, they tried being a taxi company. They tried being a TV network. They tried being a love hotel. And they also had something in regards to like a food company.
Nintendo.
They were involved with a food company called Instant Rice. So later on, after all that stuff happened, in 1966, they started involving themselves in the toy industry. You know that toy that it's got like the clamp on it, and like you pull it and it extends out, and then when you retract it, it comes back in. Like, you know, like the grabby hand toys?
Yeah.
It's that. So it was almost like a weird like scissor design, and it would like as you cranked it like this, like it would scrunch up and extend.
Oh, okay.
That toy, they made that. And then later on, basically between then and 1981.
And then those became the Chain Chomps.
Yeah. That and 1981, between that time, they were involved with electronics and toys. They started making parts for other like arcade games, and they decided we're gonna do our own stuff. So they started making small video game consoles like Color TV, for example. And one of their first hits was the Game & Watch. Game & Watch was a big success in Japan, and then Donkey Kong showed up, and that blew that out of the water.
Yep.
And then our first guest blew that out of the water. So in 1983, it was called the Famicom, released in Japan. In 1985, it solely saved the video game industry.
Yes, it did. Thank you, Atari and ET. I appreciate that.
With 17 launch titles. 17 launch titles. And selling about 61.91 million units,
Yeah.
we give you the Nintendo Entertainment System.
The granddaddy of Nintendo. Well,
the grandest daddy.
the grandest daddy. Don't ever say that again.
So,
Especially considering this used to be a love hotel company. Anyway.
so this guy was responsible for having a major impact on the industry with games starting out in it. For example, Mario Brothers, The Legend of Zelda. We also have, what else we got here on this list?
Actually, while you're talking about that, while you're looking for that, can I also
got
note that the design of this console is fantastic. Like it just looks so nice. It looks so futuristic. Think about this when you're a child in the 80s, when the biggest thing you had to look forward to was maybe a VCR. You open this thing up, you get like your own hatch, you put the game in, you close the hatch, and then you press the start button. That looks so cool. It's so satisfying.
I only have one issue with it,
What?
and it's via demonstration.
Oh, I know exactly what issue you have with it.
I'm going to make sure that everybody can see it.
Yeah. Yep. 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 And here, by the way, is where the Magnavox Odyssey did it right, because it had the little handles that you could pull, like you could actually hook. Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I bought this from Video Game Trading Post about a month ago.
It's so beautiful.
It's one of,
Look
if
at
not
this.
my all-time favorite Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda 2: Adventure of Link. One of the most hated Zelda games ever.
Yeah, which is exactly why he chose to showcase it today.
No, I was stuck in the NES.
God
so
forbid
I figured I'd show the demonstration here rather
God
than my
forbid
home.
you do anything that makes people happy.
It was also responsible, speaking of making people happy, for games like Kirby's Adventure, Metroid,
Where's Kirby?
Punch-Out. No, we're not putting Kirby on here. Colton brought a Kirby here that's covered in Flex Seal. We're not putting it on TV.
Listen, man, with the advent of all the new Smash DLC, I got way too hyped for Phil Swift being DLC number 4, and it just went from there, man.
Yeah, my point being, with all these games, which also include stuff like a Tetris port, it had a Galaga port, it had Castlevania 1 through 3 on it.
Yes.
This was where it started. Literally where it started. Now, in terms of the actual controller, nice and flat, pretty good. Everything's self-explanatory. Touch that, touch this, do that. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Right? Well, Nintendo decided that after a little while of some success,
It
including
just wasn't good enough.
yeah, including Super Mario Brothers 3, which we will talk about during our next segment,
Isn't that weird?
The child.
We're talking about Super Mario Brothers 3 and NES game in the next segment?
yeah,
That's super weird.
in the next segment,
Yeah.
we'll explain. But
I can
the
explain.
child of this guy, pretty good child, sold a couple of, did really well with sequels. It also sold about 49.10 million units.
Essentially, are we bringing it
We're
up?
going to bring it up now.
Oh, okay.
Also in Japan, known as the Super Famicom. Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
That's where this whole super thing started, by the way, is with,
Yeah.
with like Nintendo, like the whole, the blank, the super blank, the super mega blank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where this started.
Pretty much. Anyway, the console that took the most advantage of sequels that I have ever seen.
Yes, this was basically sequels the console.
And probably one of my favorite consoles of all time, the Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah, what is on the side? Did you
do you mean?
vomit on the side of your Super?
I thought about
Nintendo?
Sega earlier today, and
Don't you
I
start with
I
me.
needed to desperetely clean it up before the
Don't
show.
you start with me.
So
Flex
this,
Seal.
It's
Flex
Flex
Seal.
Seal isn't green and goopy. Like it's
it's not goopy. Anyway, so as you,
Off-brand Flex Seal that you get at Walmart for half off.
it's Seal Smart.
Flexible.
It's
Costco brand Flex Seal.
it's called Seal Smart.
It's called flexible sealant.
Flexible sealant. So this guy, you could obviously tell from some of the differences. Buttons are in different spots. They're more of like slots than anything.
Yeah. It looks more futuristic than the NES, which I think Nintendo was great with their console.
Oh,
design.
sure. It also started the whole trend of putting the cartridge on the top.
Which is amazing. Actually, the Famicom did that. They had a
Yes,
they
it
had a
did.
later
You're
release.
100% right.
They had a later release of the Famicom, the top loader Famicom, because everybody hated I mean, it looked cool. It was amazing. Like when you had the commercial where it's like, oh, look at the way you put the thing in.
Right.
And then when you actually went to take the thing out, it's like, well, you can put it in perfectly fine, but taking it out's a nightmare. So,
I was going to talk about that. It's like,
Yeah.
now there's a button to fix your
yes,
problem.
absolutely.
This console was home to the following games. We have Super Metroid, Super Mario World, Kirby Superstar, you see a theme here, Super Mario Kart, Final Fantasy 2 and 3.
Oh, yes.
The first Star Fox game, aka Polygon Simulator. We also have Donkey Kong Country
So
1
good.
through 3.
Yes! Oh, so many
I also
good
didn't
games.
mention on the NES. The NES was the start of Mega Man. The Super Nintendo was the start of Mega Man X series, and also Earthbound.
Yes, Earthbound. Oh my God, I forgot about Earthbound.
Yeah, this console in particular. I mean, the NES was mainly like arcade ports,
Right.
and also trying things out. This was essentially refining and experimenting.
Yeah, this is Nintendo getting like the NES made the name. This cemented the name.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is what kept Nintendo in everybody's head after the NES.
Well, also in terms of like Nintendo itself as a console or as a company, one of the biggest achievements of the SNES, at least to me, is the ability to do what they did musically. Because in the NES, it all had to be shared on the same chip. This had different chips in it dedicated to different things. So you had one chip that was in charge of running the game and making sure it was smooth. The other chip was in charge of music and sound effects and whatnot, while again on the NES, everything was plopped into one chip. So you could like jump and get a coin and all those sounds are being made and the music's interrupted and it sounded really freaking weird.
Yeah.
But this is like, you can do all that and it's not interrupted, so you could bob your head to it instead of going like...
So it just looked like an extremely confused goose.
Pretty much.
But-
So coming up next, we're going to actually start on Sega's origins and what they were doing during this time.
Yeah.
The SNES was around until, in terms of popularity, until 1995, basically.
And that's when Sega started doing some really fun stuff. So we're going to look at that in a little bit.
Coming up next.
Cut to the commercial.
Hudson Valley CBD. All natural cannabis oil trusted by athletes for focus, recovery, and pain management. Perfect for everyday management of anxiety, insomnia, inflammation, and overall health. All the medicinal benefits of cannabis without the high. Use promo code NERD for 20% off to find out why thousands of people trust Hudson Valley CBD as their trusted CBD brand. That's promo code NERD, N-E-R-D, for 20% off.
And welcome back!
Hello!
By the way, as you just saw, if you go to HudsonValleyCBD.com and use the promo code NERD, you can get 20% off. How cool is that?
We got a promo code.
Dude, we got a promo code.
It really perfectly describes us, too.
Absolutely. All right, so welcome back to NERDVANA, Long Island. I'm Colton Murray.
I am still Marlon.
Good.
Didn't change yet.
All right, yet is the key word there, folks. Now, what we're going to be talking about is one of my absolute favorite companies ever, Sega. Sega is just so much fun. I have so many fond memories of Sega.
Oh boy.
Listen, all right?
Listen, I'm trying to be fair because
can
you love
get,
it.
John, can you get me that thing?
Oh yeah! Hold on.
Yeah,
Oh wait. Oh wait.
Oh my God.
We forgot to do that. Wait, where is he?
All right, set up the.
Where's that idiot?
While he's doing this.
Wrong idiot.
While he's doing this, we're gonna. Yes! There's my boy. There's good old Sonic T Hedgehog. I love him so much. All right, so this is one of my favorite companies of all time. It really is such a stark contrast to Nintendo in a lot of ways, and we'll go through that as the episode progresses. The Sega company actually started in 1940, technically. Let me pull up the guys' names. It's an American company, really. Martin Brumley, Irving Bloomberg, and James Humpert, very unfortunate last name, started service games in Honolulu, Hawaii, as a series of coin-operated slot machines for the military.
World War II vibes.
Absolutely, which I think is really, really interesting. If you look up service games machines, you can see the earliest Sega machines on the market. Now, in 1950, there was or 1951 actually, the U.S. outlawed coin-operated slot machines in U.S. territories. So these guys were kind of forced to outsource. So they ended up in Japan. And they started doing their coin-operated slot machines in Japan until 1961. I believe they sold the rights to those.
1960.
1960. Yes.
It was liquidated in 1960 in May.
And then it was renamed officially as Service Games for its military roots. And then it was abbreviated to
it was like
Sega.
two different companies. It was Service Games and Rosen Enterprises.
Yes,
they got a guy
that's what it was.
by the name of something Rosen that I can't find right now. No, what's his name?
Wasn't it?
I don't think so. I'll look for. Oh, David Rosen.
David Rosen.
David Rosen was stationed in Japan.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken, and he was involved in a different business.
Right.
So he decided, I'm going to help with that one.
Yeah. Now, when Sega entered the home console market, they actually started doing a lot of stuff with Midway games. Interestingly enough, the Sega-Nintendo rivalry goes back really, really far.
Yeah.
Because when Atari was making arcade cabinets, Nintendo was helping them out. You know, they were helping out with the Atari components in the Atari games. Now...
They were friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Midway was Atari's biggest competitor. So Sega went over to Midway and started doing stuff with them, which I think is really interesting. Mm-hmm. You know, so they go back way far.
And Nintendo was just pulling hands for anybody out there that was just like, we need help. Like, okay, we'll help you. Come here.
Yeah, of course. If Nintendo reached out to Midway, I'm sure there wouldn't have been that big a rivalry. But I love the fact that they all started releasing home consoles around the same time. Nintendo had the NES at the time. Obviously, Atari had the 2600, and the 5200 was in the works. And then...
Sega stuff was crazy.
Yeah, Sega stuff was nuts.
You ready for the names?
Yeah.
Let me read them off.
Hold on, wait. I have with us an SG-100. No, could you imagine?
We have, here are the names.
I wish.
We have, in order, the SC-3000, the SG-1000, Marks 1 through 3.
Yes.
And the Sega Master System.
Yes. Now, the it was the SC-3000. That was Sega's first home console system, right?
Yes.
It was this little, box with one of those tiny little joystick controllers. It's like, it was very, very simple to find one of these. Oh no, this was right.
It was like a big ass keyboard.
It was a keyboard. Yeah, I was thinking of the SG-1000.
Yeah,
but
the 1000 is that one has a cool design too.
Right.
Look it up. It's got like this blue, white, and red to it.
Now the SC-3000. What could you particularly do with this machine, Marlon?
You typed.
What else?
You typed other things.
And that's the SC-3000. Moving on to the SG-100. The SG-100 was more
1000.
similar. Oh, yeah, right. Why do I keep saying 100?
Because it only sold like 100 times. No, that's what you were talking about.
Yes.
The SG-1000 essentially looked like the Super Nintendo, except very wide, and it had a controller where it was vertical and like a giant, the stick was like this.
It was attached to the control. It was attached to the system. So like it was, you remember the Pong machines we brought? It was kind of like those, or the Magnavox Odyssey. It was
and
a little
version 1 of 3.
Yeah. So I have a joke about this. The Sega company being an American company, they really prioritized quantity over quality with.
Speaking of the one that actually did it, you want to bring out our first guest?
Yeah, well, not yet.
We're almost there.
Okay,
I'm getting
all
excited.
right. You know what? We won't harp on the SG for a while. The Master System was like Sega's NES, and it did a lot. There weren't really a lot of notable games for the Master System. I believe Alex the Kid was on that.
Alex the Kid was the flagship, attempt at Mario.
Yeah, Alex the Kid was supposed to compete with Mario, but then when Alex the Kid kind of retired, became an adult.
The one thing really quick while you have the Master System.
Yeah.
So the Master System is basically the Genesis from Japan. Like that's their Japanese system. It got released on the 29th of October 1998, which was unfortunately followed up by, it was overshadowed by Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah.
Which that was an issue when you have a game that, for example, it sold 250,000 copies in the first 2 days of release. It sold 17 million units, including bundled units, just for the NES alone.
Yeah.
Forget digital ports, forget digital streaming services. It just went absolutely bonkers. And it was compared to, this was the interesting fact for me, its sales were equal to a song in the music industry going platinum 11 times.
Yeah, which is insane.
So the Master System got, although it did great things for the time,
got
totally overshadowed.
Obliterated. If the Master System had come out a little bit earlier or a little bit later, it would have done so much better.
Until?
Yes, until. One of the most important systems in video games, to me at least, this is the system that kind of like shook Nintendo's solid pillars of success. This was the one that sent the tremors up to the top. I present to you, presented by Video Game Trading Post, the Sega Genesis. Oh, what a beautiful system this was. Now, you can see it's a cartridge-based system. You can see that it's a nice futuristic design. It just has a nice, cool, edgy looking feel to it. That was the biggest thing with Sega over Nintendo. Sega was edgy. Sega don't care. Sega does. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. You remember that? So that was the whole thing. This was also a 16-bit console. This was to compete with the Super Nintendo at the time.
Well, actually, what was going on was Nintendo had an NES, the NES, which was 8-bit.
Yeah.
And they were planning on doing a 16-bit console. These guys beat them to it.
Yeah.
These guys released this in '89. So they were doing this before Nintendo did. and still didn't get enough popularity. But in terms of their consoles, for example, some of the older systems we talked about sold, like the 3000 sold 120,000 units total.
Right.
The SG-1000 sold 160,000 total. The Sega Master System was 13 million. That was the Japanese Genesis we talked about. This one sold 30.75 million units, which was incredible for them, just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. Now, what was great about the Genesis is because Nintendo had like a policy with a lot of their games coming up. They wanted it to be, cartoony and like for kids. Wanted to be nice and sweet and like family friendly. Sega don't care. Sega wanted to go right for the throat. Sega had Mortal Kombat. Remember Sega had that was the huge thing. There's articles on articles on articles when Mortal Kombat was released for the Sega. It was also released for the Nintendo, by the way. But for the Nintendo, it was released without blood. For Sega, you had the blood version, and that was the big thing. Sega also had one of the best characters in video game history. This little blue guy, it's Sonic. This was the perfect antithesis to Nintendo's Mario. And what's really weird is that we don't know why. We don't know why Sonic is just such a perfectly designed character.
We do,
why
actually.
Why are so many people drawn to him?
That's the thing, is that we actually do.
We
in
do.
In a sense, based on the time he came out. So the story goes that this Japanese artist named Naoto Oshima, decided that he was going to take from the Japanese headquarters of Sega sketches and designs. He brought a bunch of different sketches with him. He went to New York City. He went to Grand Central Park, and literally took sketches of things like a weird creature-looking thing like Sonic, or Theodore Roosevelt in pajamas, or a dog, or a duck, or whatever, and he showed them to pedestrians and got their opinions. The number one guy was this one. The second one was Theodore Roosevelt in pajamas. He was Sonic. Was named Mr. Needlemouse.
Mr. Needlemouse, yes. I was for some reason I was thinking of that really bad Halloween costume, Blue Speed Mouse.
And Theodore Roosevelt in pajamas ended up being Dr.
Robotnik,
Eggman.
yeah.
Ended up being Dr. Eggman.
I kind of love that. I really do love thinking about him.
The thing that made Sonic popular at the time was literally based on the time. A lot of his design was inspired by Michael Jackson. He also had color drawing from, for example, Santa Claus. Like his shoes were to represent, the style was Michael Jackson. The colors were based on Santa. And his attitude, his can-do attitude, was based on Bill Clinton.
Really?
Yeah. So based on all these different things, because Mario didn't have a personality. Mario was like, I'm a plumber. I'm going to save my princess.
Mario really didn't have anything. Mario was just kind of Mario.
Sega was like, let's get it.
Yeah. In the beginning, Sonic really didn't have too much of an attitude until the TV show. That was the big thing that
he didn't have an attitude. He had an edge.
Yeah, he had an edge. He did, and his games were also just super fun to play. Sonic the Hedgehog 1 is just it's fast. It's beautiful. It's colorful. It's satisfying when you jump on the enemies. It has the same similar mechanic to Mario, only instead of jumping being your main mode of platforming, Sonic's was running. And it was just fun. The courses were perfectly built for the style of gameplay. Now, some would argue that maybe they really weren't. Because there's a lot of times where you have to stop and you got to wait. And that was Sonic's, that was the big weird part of the original Sonic games.
That was evident with a couple things, which I want to get to, because unfortunately we have to move forward. The first thing is the Sega games themselves. This one, the first one, sold incredibly well. I think it sold like 20 million units. This one, the second one, sold 4. And this one sold 2.
Yeah.
As it kept going, it just went down, down for whatever reason. Even though it was an incredibly popular and likable character, the sales were not there with the games. The consoles were doing great. Unfortunately, with the next console we have, a lot of things happened. A lot of things are different between the two systems.
We should also talk briefly about the Sega CD. Now,
we should.
A weird thing about Sega is that, They did a lot of things that Nintendo, well, Sega does what Nintendo don't. That is for damn sure. Now, what Sega used to do is they used to make additions to their consoles. You know, they used to make add-ons, hardware add-ons. They would release different versions of console after console after console, bombarding and saturating the market with Sega, and I think that was their biggest problem. You can actually see in the Genesis, they released a few versions of this thing, but they actually almost had this pre-planned. You can see this little red bar on the side. It's not too big a quality. I can try and push it there. But like, this was a port to add hardware. You had to buy a separate CD loader to play some of these games. And that's where Sonic CD and the, what was the other 3D Sonic? The first real...
3D Blast?
Yeah, 3D Blast. So that was where those really came from. And it was just no parent back in the early 90s was like, I already bought you the damn Genesis. I don't need to buy you the CD
I hate to
add-on."
cut this short, but we gotta go.
Of course,
we
yeah.
were gonna show another one.
Yeah.
We'll show it in the last segment. We just don't have enough time to right now.
No, I know what you mean.
So coming up next, we're jumping back to Nintendo, kind of fast forwarding what they were doing, which includes one of my favorite consoles again, with one of the biggest libraries known to date. So coming up next, we're gonna go with Nintendo.
Hi, my name's Anthony. I'm with Mission Nutrition. We have 2 stores located in Hicksville and Huntington Village. We were established in 2015 by myself and my brother. We kind of are a hybrid supplement store / nutrition store where we focus on a lot of groceries so people can hit their specific diet, whether it's vegan, paleo, ketogenic. Definitely give us a follow on Instagram at It's Mission Nutrition. And definitely come on down to the stores and check us out, see what we're about.
Hudson Valley CBD. All natural cannabis oil trusted by athletes for focus, recovery, and pain management. Perfect for everyday management of anxiety, insomnia, inflammation, and overall health. All the medicinal benefits of cannabis without the high. Use promo code NERD for 20% off to find out why thousands of people trust Hudson Valley CBD as their trusted CBD brand. That's promo code NERD, N-E-R-D, for 20% off.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I don't work here, but I found this shirt in the back. Come on, let me show you something. So this is Video Game Trading Post. It's at 52 East Village Green in Levittown, right across from the 7-Eleven. Now, take a look at all of this stuff. Look at all these video games. Anything from the 70s to now. Anything from the Atari to the Switch, you're gonna find it right here in this store. Accessories, games, and all this other stuff that you see, this would have been in the dumpster, if not in the store. But now, they're on the shelves where they belong. All these classic and beautiful things. Also, this store does something really cool. You know those old GameCube games that you probably left to your cat and, well, speaking from experience, none of them work anymore because it doesn't read anything anymore. This thing right here, this will fix that for you. What other store does that? You just press, oh! Video Game Trading Post is one of the coolest places on Long Island because it's good for collectors too. If you're a collector of video games or if you want to start collecting video games, you can get in-box options here and really high quality stuff. Let me show you something here. Look at this in-box Nintendo 64 from Japan. Look at that. This is awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful product, and I would buy this to start a collection. You kidding me? Now, what am I gonna put this over here, if you don't mind. So, Video Game Trading Post, 52 East Village Green in Levittown. Make sure you come here, tell your friends about it. It's a great place.
Who are you?
Cheese it! is going to be great.
Jinx.
Yeah, you owe me a soda. All right.
I'm not owing you anything.
That's fine.
I'm also poor.
It's all right. Me too. Why do you think we're doing this? You think we're doing this for free?
We're gonna have to lick the puddle outside by the sewer to get a drink. Anyway,
That's basically what Mountain Dew is. Let's be real.
so this system I'm really excited to bring. I think we're both really excited to bring it out. This guy sold 32.93 million units. It was home to many things like Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie.
I literally have a tattoo because of the game that was the biggest Zelda game that was on it.
And started the ever-growing, ever-toxic Smash community. Presenting to you the Nintendo 64.
Oh, just gotta give it up. Gotta give it up. This was actually my first video game console, and my first game was Mario Kart 64.
It took, again, this is a system that took what the previous system did and built on it and created a culture. And I didn't show this. We didn't show the SNES controller before, but this is a weird one.
Mm-hmm.
So, Colton, you want to?
If you're an octopus,
you want to explain a controller?
But it's I can't. So essentially, you basically had 3 ways you could choose to hold this dumb thing. So you could hold it like this, which I remember a few of my friends doing when I was younger. I was like, what the hell? I would hold it like this because you need your thumb for the control stick.
That's what I would do.
Now, what's really fun is that they actually had to replace the control sticks on later models of this controller because it would actually wear out people's thumbs.
Dude, I call it the Mario Party escapade.
Mario Party, it's the Mario Party syndrome. But you could, in theory, hold it like this. You could hold it like this. I've seen people hold it like this, which was the weirdest one I've ever seen. I'm like, what are you going to do with this? So there's 3 ways you can hold this controller. And it really kind of I don't want to say turned a lot of people off to video games because it was this is a scary looking device to someone that doesn't know what a video game is. Mm-hmm. You know, like to my 78-year-old grandmother when she bought this thing, she was like, what the hell is this?
No, it was a very unfamiliar thing to see because everyone was so used to having the block or vertical or horizontal. So
made for two-handed individuals.
They changed the blueprint. So I mean, this was, I gotta say, we were gonna talk about the systems that we're gonna talk about in the next segment earlier, but what this did for in terms of graphically at the time, it does not hold up now. But at the time,
but it's nice and nostalgic.
At the time, it was incredible.
Oh,
and
it
the
was
games
beautiful.
that came out were incredible.
GoldenEye may as well have been a movie when I was when I was in what? We were in maybe third grade? Mm-hmm. You know? No, actually the GameCube was out around then. It was
yeah.
So when we were kindergarten, first grade, GoldenEye, Zelda, those may have well been movies.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what they did too is for example, as I said before with the SNES, not only did it go forth with sequels and improving what the previous system did, it did experimenting. So for example, we got a 3D Mario game.
Yeah,
we got a 3D Zelda game.
That was great.
First it was for Zelda, for example. Zelda's had quite an adventure, or Link rather.
Yeah. Well, Zelda too.
It was top down, then 2D, then top down, now 3D, then 3D again, but darker with a creepy ass moon.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's and basically the same graphic chip, but this system did a crazy amount, whether you want to admit it or not. It did a crazy amount for the time. The problem with it, and as well as the Sega Saturn's problem, the PlayStation.
Yep.
So the PlayStation is something I want to hit
Damn you,
on.
Sony!
I told you that this thing sold basically 33 million units. The PlayStation 1, it sold, I think it sold, here it is. It sold 102 million units.
Yeah.
It sold 155 as of 2013.
Once Sony entered the game changed.
The game was over.
Yeah.
The game was 100% over. It's a matter of who takes second place.
Yeah. It was unbelievable. Like, and this was Sony's real first foray in the video game world. Actually,
it literally was the first shot for success.
Fun fact is actually Sony was supposed to work with Nintendo on the PlayStation. Nintendo was supposed to have the PlayStation, but then Nintendo kind of soured the deal a little bit, and Sony was just pulled out completely.
Which is perfect Nintendo, because something that happened between the Sega Genesis and Saturn was Nintendo was increasingly getting third parties.
Yeah.
And with the third parties came unnecessarily and unreasonably strict rules and that's one of the bad things Nintendo did. They could have made a lot of money, but you had companies like Capcom or who else pulled out too? Bandai?
Namco.
Bandai Namco. They pulled out. I mean, you saw Mega Man on a Saturn,
Yeah.
for example. And this is a system that was homegrown. Now, granted, we got Mega Man 64. I have yet to see any gameplay of it. I have yet to see the game myself. I am very excited to do so eventually.
It's cool. It's
but
alright. Yeah.
I'm hearing it's drawing a lot of Superman 64 vibes.
Well, listen, Superman 64 was charming in its own right, but it was kind of like The Room, it's just so bad it's good. But it's the Nintendo 64 was also super important. It really launched a lot of careers. It launched a lot of video game careers, Yeah, Zelda was huge, but before Ocarina of Time, Zelda was a blip on the radar. It exploded after the N64.
It was
Mario
crazy.
exploded with Mario Kart 64 and Super Mario 64. Star Fox was unheard of until the N64.
You want to talk about exploding? We got another console, our last Nintendo console for the
Yes.
night. This thing exploded,
Oh, yeah.
except the wrong way.
Yes.
It imploded.
It really
So
did.
this guy,
Didn't have a good end.
now as you can tell from what I'm saying, if you've been paying attention for Nintendo, based on this stat, this guy sold basically 22 million units. So as you can tell from the NES on, the sales were lowering, they were dropping. This console had pretty good games on it. Like, for example, the Pikmin series was started here. Super Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion,
Metroid
Prime, and also opened up third-party deals, which is not something that the Nintendo 64 did often, but did. Introducing the homeboy,
the next Sega system.
the Nintendo GameCube. You mother bleeper. Okay.
I was waiting for this. This is where we fight.
Because we can talk about the system, but Colton said this to me earlier today.
Yeah.
And it was on my mind. It literally ruined my day. So I want to hear in a very brief, give it 30 seconds.
Okay, of
Why
course.
you feel that your opinion is right, even though it's absolutely not.
Okay.
So
here.
what is it and why?
All right, because basically this is
What's the exact opinion?
When the GameCube came out, Sega was dead. As a hardware company, Sega was dead. And a lot of the Sega classics moved over to the GameCube, and a lot of people found out about these Sega classics after the company had really died from the hardware market because of Nintendo. And I believe that when they ported Sonic Adventure 2, they had a Crazy Taxi port, they had a Space Channel 5, Sonic Riders, they had all of these amazing Sonic games and Sega games. It brought Sega back to the public eye. It brought it back to the forefront. It made Sega relevant again, and it made people want to go out and buy a Dreamcast. It kind of revived the sales of Sega systems for a little bit, and it kind of it brought it back to us, But it brought it back nice and clean. We're not going to talk about the Japanese release of Sonic Adventure DX. Leave me alone. But we're going to talk about Sonic Adventure 2. Not a bad game by any standard. Not a good game either. But I know my 30 seconds are up. But yeah, it brought Sega back to the public eye. And that's why I think it can be considered the last Sega system. Because a lot of Sega games were on it.
Okay. Well, let me start with this, because I actually took the time to really, besides hatefulness, I decided to actually.
He took the hat off.
I actually decided to do the research and talk about it.
All right, you got 30 seconds.
Which was your 30 seconds. All right. So first of all, you're wrong. You couldn't be more wrong. If anyone was more wrong, it would probably be you on a different opinion. Number one. Number two, a lot of those Sega games were multi-console, so you can't credit the fact that it was just the GameCube. The GameCube, the original Xbox, and eventually PS2 all held Sega games. It brought people to popularity. All three of them did. You cannot solely credit this. Number three, this list shows the top-selling games of Nintendo GameCube. If you want to stick to GameCube, we're going to go one down.
Let's do it.
Smash Bros, Nintendo.
Oh,
Mario Kart Double Dash, Nintendo. New Super Mario Sunshine, Nintendo. Wind Waker, Nintendo. Luigi's Mansion, Nintendo. Animal Crossing, Nintendo. Metroid Prime,
Oh yeah,
Nintendo.
Animal Crossing started here too.
Sonic Adventure Battle 2, Sega, finally. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, Nintendo. Mario Party 4, Nintendo. Sonic Mega Collection, Sega. Mario Party 5, Nintendo. Star Fox Adventures, Nintendo. Mario Party 7, Nintendo. Pokemon Coliseum, Nintendo. Do you see where I am getting at?
I do see where you're getting at.
It is also the fact, the main reason here, in an all serious manner, is that after the, spoilers, after the Dreamcast died and Sega decided to move into a gaming developing company instead of being a console company, they reached out with any opportunity and hand that they can give or hold. And in this case, they had a crazy amount of popularity from the Xbox franchise. Everyone talks about Sonic 06 on the 360.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, and eventually
incredibly bad.
Exactly. But again, it circulated the market. So in a way, they're more intelligent in that field than Nintendo, because Nintendo has exclusives saying, like, if you want to have these games, you can buy them and play them on the system. But Sega was like, you don't need to worry about that. They run just as well, if not better, on the other systems.
Right.
So now that you got that audience, you're reaching out to a better cloud, dragging that audience for the Dreamcast.
I get that. But the reason I say about the GameCube being the next in the Sega line, and really the last, and where Sega kind of died, where it died as a hardware company, because a lot of people were accustomed to seeing Sega as a competition. They were accustomed to having the choice.
Right, it was the four horses.
Dude, it was the four horses, and then all of a sudden seeing Sonic on a GameCube on a Nintendo console, it was like, that's it, that's the white flag. Mm-hmm. But the GameCube, didn't the GameCube come out before the PlayStation 2?
No, well actually, to further that argument, there are games that came out very late in the PlayStation's life before the GameCube started.
So it was the early PlayStation, late PlayStation 1.
Late PlayStation 1 before GameCube, because I think the PlayStation 1 was around until 2006. So
was it really?
Yeah, it was being
it was all the way up to the 360.
It was discontinued in 2006.
Oh my God!
Well, because other countries like
Europe,
Japan was popping.
Yeah.
Europe gets everything late.
I was like, I vividly remember PlayStation 2 in 2003.
And Australia had a life pulse.
Oh, of course.
But
nothing else does.
Like,
so.
there are games, like maybe 2 or 3, that were on the original PlayStation, which supersedes this.
Right.
So technically,
right, but that's listen. That's kind of Sega.
They also came out around the same time too.
Yeah.
All those systems.
Right. But it's Nintendo doing what they normally do. They came out a little bit earlier than the rest. The Wii U came out earlier than the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The Wii came out before the PS3 and the Xbox 360.
Right.
Now, the GameCube came out a little bit before the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox.
Right.
Now, Sega releasing their games... I don't think you're in the shot there, buddy. All right.
Am I in the shot now?
Yeah, there we go.
Am I in the shot now?
Gonna knock over my coffee. All right, so...
The big chair in the way.
I know, right? So I think that, that Sega releasing games for the PlayStation 1 towards the end of its life is kind of like them throwing out the life ring. You know? They're trying to I think that's like a side hustle. That's comparable to a side hustle.
At the same time though, however.
Whereas this is total forfeit. This is it. But
the bigger argument here too, and I don't know why I'm cuddling it, but
because it's important.
It's important to us. It wasn't a great selling system. It was important
it wasn't.
To us. You have to look at the
it's a
argument.
Great stepping stone.
You have to look at the argument too. That again, as I said here, was about 22 million units were sold. The PlayStation 1 was 102, 104, something like that, and then the PlayStation. Did I say PlayStation or PlayStation 2?
You said PlayStation 2.
The PlayStation was 102, 104. The PlayStation 2 was even more than that.
Yeah.
So the audience was 5 times the number of this.
Right.
So the reach was bigger. And then even the Xbox sold more too.
Yeah, but at the same time, I say this came out first. You know, this was the first one to really do it. And just because the numbers weren't as high, you know, this kind of like started the fire.
Well,
and then once everyone started seeing that Sega's also available for PlayStation 2, they're like, oh crap, obviously we're going to do it.
Well, I mean, at the same time, too, the Saturn was big for doing something that wasn't 16-bit. It was 32-bit, and look how that worked. And speaking of which, coming up next, we have the decline of Sega with our two guests, the Sega Saturn and the Sega Dreamcast, coming up on Nerdvana LI.
They'll be explaining how they died.
Me llaman Dan Pablo y hace más de 20 años me enamoré de una colombiana. Viajé a su país y conocí un estilo de café muy distinto, muy especial. Ahora tostamos cafés excelentes, con alturas y microclimas diferentes, resultado en una taza muy compleja y muy rica, un sabor nuevo en el mundo. Fue un éxito. And I even got to keep the girl.
Hi, my name's Anthony. I'm with Mission Nutrition. We have two stores located in Hicksville and Huntington Village. We were established in 2015 by myself and my brother. We kind of are a hybrid supplement store / nutrition store where we focus on a lot of groceries so people can hit their specific diet, whether it's vegan, paleo, ketogenic. Definitely give us a follow on Instagram at It's Mission Nutrition. And definitely come on down to the stores and check us out, see what we're about.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I don't work here, but I found this shirt in the back. Come on, let me show you something. So this is Video Game Trading Post. It's at 52 East Village Green in Levittown, right across from the 7-Eleven. Now, take a look at all of this stuff. Look at all these video games. Anything from the 70s to now. Anything from the Atari to the Switch, you're gonna find it right here in this store. Accessories, games, and all this other stuff that you see, this would have been in the dumpster, if not in the store. But now, they're on the shelves where they belong. All these classic and beautiful things. Also, this store does something really cool. You know those old GameCube games that you probably left to your cat and, well, speaking from experience, none of them work anymore because it doesn't read anything anymore. This thing right here, this will fix that for you. What other store does that? You just press, oh! Video Game Trading Post is one of the coolest places on Long Island because it's good for collectors too. If you're a collector of video games or if you want to start collecting video games, you can get inbox options here and really high quality stuff. Let me show you something here. Look at this inbox Nintendo 64 from Japan. Look at that. This is awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful product, and I would buy this to start a collection. You kidding me? And what am I gonna put this over here, if you don't mind. So, Video Game Trading Post, 52 East Village Green in Levittown. Make sure you come here, tell your friends about it. It's a great place. Cheese it! Oh, look, I'm naked!
We're good for picture!
All right, welcome back to Nerdvana Long Island. Before we get started, I just want to give a few quick shout-outs. Garrett Weiner, love you, man. Nikki Bell, love you. Let's see, who else? Dan Strahan, love you. Stephen Judge! Stephen Judge is watching us!
Oh my god, I love Steve.
Yo! Laura Salippo,
Yo, do you want to shout out our amenders?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
If you can find them?
I will. Wills Holly, love you. Matt Waldman, love you. Cassie Christian, love you. Rob Leonard, love you. Tony Lupo, Carol Murray, love you. And Brian All right, so I
That
just
was
want
just for
to
Tony. That wasn't anybody else.
say Garrett Weiner corrected us.
Thank you, Garrett.
Absolutely. GameCube came out November 18th, 2001, and the Dreamcast ended in 2001. PS2 came out in 2000. So
Yes, Sega became a gaming company in 2003.
Yes, I was wrong. So, and the Wii and the PS4 both came out in 2006, whereas the Xbox 360 preceded it by 1 year in 2005. Wow. Which is weird, because I vividly remember Sonic being a launch title for the Xbox 360. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a launch title. It was very close, though. Very close to the release.
It was almost there.
Yeah, so...
Speaking of almost there, these guys.
Yeah. These poor bastards.
We're not going to get into numbers and facts
Yeah.
and stuff. These were colossal failures.
Oh, you remember when I said the Nintendo 64 had the strangest controller? Well, take a look at this monstrosity.
These were both also brought to us by Video Game Trading Post. Thank you guys for the sweet hookup.
This did have the superior control stick, though, I will say. But it was just, it's so far off to the left.
Any games in here?
It looks weird. It looks like a time capsule. I don't like it. And it had 2 memory card slots in the controller. This was a weird controller.
This is basically the Genesis controller,
Yes.
except modern.
Just thicker. It got the SNES treatment.
So
and the start button's a weird triangle at the bottom. It's just
so let's dive into this. So with the Saturn again, like I had been saying with Nintendo, with the exception of the GameCube slightly, each system was an improvement on the past, and unfortunately, too many hands got put into the pool here.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, my friends.
And this system took a lot of the features that the Genesis made the Genesis great, and said, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And that's why this thing sold, I believe, less than 10 million units.
America. All right. So now next is the Sega Dreamcast. This is one of the coolest systems ever. I really think the controller was garbage, but the rest of the system is really fun. Had a lot of fun games on here. Crazy Taxi.
It sold more than this thing.
Yeah, Knights, Crazy Taxi, Space Channel 5, Jet Set Radio. Just so many and of course Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. They're just really, really fun. It's a really fun system. And I think the big problem with this is towards the end of its life, it wasn't doing well with game sales. However, a lot of people did have access to the games because the CDs, the games were burned onto CDs and they weren't encrypted properly, allowing people to literally make illegal copies of the games, and they would work on your Dreamcast just as well as the
LimeWire video games.
It was literally the LimeWire of video games.
So what's interesting about this is, first of all, it was the first CD console. First CD console.
No, it was not. Sega CD. Sega CD before
first major.
Genesis. Yes.
First major.
First main CD console. You know, it was where it wasn't an add-on, where it wasn't
That's what I mean.
The first system that didn't take cartridges.
It was also, unless I'm mistaken elsewhere, and chat, please correct us.
Wait a minute. Philips CDI.
Ah.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about that piece of garbage, but we're going to...
This was one of the few, if not the only major console to do 32-bit.
Yeah.
So this guy decided, why don't we just up Nintendo again that was doing 16-bit? And they did 32, and they expected Nintendo to do 32 too, but they went to 64, and then stuff started happening. But, so about this, I mean, I felt like this system, after reading up on it, out of all the 26 pages of notes that I put for everybody for Nintendo and Sega, I wrote more on Sega than Nintendo. And look at me, I'm a Nintendo fanboy. Yeah. So I was
This is representative of Sega as where they are now, just blue screened. You know, just... You all right?
Sometimes, man, there are just days that I just want to kick over this chair and walk out and let you do it on your own. But that's not today, since we're almost done. So, with this guy... I really, after catching up on the reading and the information, I really felt that this had potential to do really cool things.
Yeah.
However, some mistakes. So, basically, they took out a lot of the arcade porting for this.
Right.
They also started late on the sports part, like the sports games. Sega Genesis was very popular in regards to having arcade game ports as well as sports games. And this guy, at launch or close to launch, had like soccer and golf. Meanwhile, PlayStation had NFL games, basketball games. I think Nintendo had some sports dip. I don't know.
Yeah, they had the 64 had like NHL and stuff like that, you know. So.
But like in regards to everything that was going on, why would you take the stuff that's incredibly popular and helping your system thrive and take it away?
I think what Sega wanted to do is I think they wanted to like take a real big risk. You know what I mean? Like they wanted to just throw it out there. Like, they knew Nintendo was on the cusp of something new, so they're just like, let's just change the game. Let's try and change the game now while we can.
Well, the problem too,
while we're on top, because they were on top at this point
for like 2 seconds.
Yes, for 2 seconds, and they're like, okay, we're at the top. Let's go. And then this happened.
The problem though is that in terms of what we've been talking about, Nintendo's homegrown.
Right.
Like Nintendo has been building off of those characters. Like we know all of these characters to this day, and that was like what 40 years ago some of them were coming out.
Nobody knows
like,
II from Super Monkey Ball. Nobody knows Ooh La La Space Channel 5. I don't even know the Jet Set characters' names.
Right.
You know, like
nobody knows because
I don't think anybody.
That was another thing. They never built on sequels.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, here you go, and like the Saturn, I don't even think had like a major Sonic game.
No, I don't think so.
It had a port. That's what it was. It was a port of like a behind-the-scenes look. I forgot what it was called. I have a folder of it on my thing here somewhere, but that's not important right now.
All right, we got to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
But like,
the Dreamcast, on the other end, took even more away. And what was going on also with both systems was Japan was in control of the Genesis for the most part until it gave America marketing rights. But then America took prime control over both of these.
Yeah.
And they started putting out quantity more than quality.
As America does. So
while these games may have had, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of catalog. If anyone wants to put it in the chat for people to know, including us, that'd be great. But I'm pretty sure these guys had bigger catalogs than Nintendo.
Way bigger.
The problem is
the problem
is you can only remember like 7 of them.
That was the problem. It was way too much stuff to remember, and the fact that you could literally pirate games for this killed the sales indefinitely. And the only characters you took away from this were Sonic. That was it.
And
a
couple sports games.
Maybe. That was and Crazy Taxi. You remember the taxi more than you remember the driver.
Which is more so an arcade game is what people know it for now than this. So kind of ending off here, where they are now. So Nintendo obviously is thriving. I mean, they're third best.
Dude.
Well, actually more second best now in comparison in the systems.
Yeah.
But they're still thriving. Sega is also in a way thriving. However, they have gained the reputation in terms of developing games as not putting as much care into as they should.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing with their software that they did with their hardware. And it's sad, you know, because to see a character like Sonic go down as far as he has, you know, because they're just trying to put out Sonic game after Sonic game after Sonic game because they know that that's the only character anyone cares about.
Plus, with all the fan fiction going around, they know people are going to buy it.
Please don't.
But like, but that's the problem is that like Sega, listen, in terms of the Sega games, I played with you Sega 1, 2, and 3. I loved them.
Yeah.
And I hate on Sonic. I loved those games.
They're great.
But it's a character that you and I wholeheartedly agree on has so much untapped potential that if they really just took a couple more years on some of the games,
yeah, just
it would be great.
Here's your biggest thing, Sega. If you're listening, give us Sonic Adventure 3 and do it in the style of Sonic Adventure 2, but just take your damn time, please.
Well, I mean, Sonic Mania, for example, was
excellent.
It was done with fan help. It was a fan game.
Just let the fans make the games, guys. They're literally asking to make the games for you.
The problem,
come on now.
The problem is that like Sega, in terms of the style, number one, their reputation is with bad games in terms of the Sonic franchise, for example. So they're gonna continue the quality because that's according to what sells the standard.
Well, because they're
that's
taking the room.
Number one.
They're taking the Pacific Rim approach. You know, don't make it a good movie.
Don't
make it a
mess
fun
with
one.
John Boyega like that.
I'm not messing with John Boyega.
Or Idris Elba.
Idris Elba.
Don't
yeah.
mess with Idris Elba.
I'm not messing with Idris Elba. I'm just saying.
Don't touch me again. Number two. Don't touch me again.
I'm just saying they're taking the monster movie approach. Make as many movies as you can. Don't worry about if they're good. Make them so they sell. And that's it. That's all what's happening. You know?
That's not what. That's the problem. Is games are meant for fun.
Yes.
You can have oh, it's like low quality. We can get it out, no problem, and it can be still fun. But where's the love? Where's the quality?
Sonic Adventure 2 was a steaming pile of garbage, but it was a
tired-
fun steaming pile of
I'm tired
garbage.
of seeing glitch videos on YouTube of how many glitches you can find in these damn games.
Yeah.
Sega, make a good freaking Sonic game, for Christ's
Take
sake!
your time. Take your time.
Jeez.
That's it. Love yourself. Live, laugh, and love. That'll do it for today.
Next episode, we're going to talk about modern consoles, what's going on now, what we missed in our E3 episode.
Yeah.
We're going to have a special guest, too.
Also, what's going to be great is we're going to be starting a podcast pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that basically is just going to cover all the nonsense we didn't get to. So
We've
make
also
sure to,
got a special interview.
Oh, we do.
I'm very excited about it. Very excited about this interview.
We have one of the most famous people in New York history coming on the show next show, and it's going to be, you're going to love it. Like, I am elated to hear his opinion.
Until then, keep playing, have fun, like what you like. This is just
Absolutely.
opinions.
Play hard, and then play harder.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to tune in next week, Tuesday at 10. Also, go on our Facebook page at NERDVANA LI. There you can recommend topics for the show, or just tell us how we did. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Video Game Trading Post, Hudson Valley CBD, and Mission Nutrition. Tune in next week. Good night.